Zakaj kapitalizma ne moremo ozeleniti? Zagotovo ste se kdaj vprašali, zakaj imajo podnebne konference zmeraj slab priokus? Zakaj je torej reševanje okoljske krize v kapitalističnem sistemu nemogoče? O tem smo se na okrogli mizi v organizaciji ekosocialistične iniciative klas pogovarjali z Danielom Tanurom, agronomom in ekosocialistom. Debata je tekla o edini alternativi, ki bi iz podnebne krize rešila tako delavski razred kot okolje in naravo – ekosocializmu. Po pogovoru smo ga poiskali in ga vprašali nekaj vprašanj. V svojih odgovorih je povzel svoje misli o ekosocializmu, neuspehih kapitalistične ekomodernizacije, nevarnosti ekofašizma ter o strateških vprašanjih, ki ležijo pred nastajajočim ekosocialističnim gibanjem. Vabljeni k poslušanju. So the first question, what is ecosocialism? How does it differ from past socialist experiments and how can it be seen as a strategy?
Well, ecosocialism is a kind of socialism, of course. The non says it, tells it. So it's an alternative to the capitalist society based on exploitation of the workforce and the nature. It's a society that aims to fulfill the basic, the real needs of the population, producing use value instead of exchange values. It's to say producing utilities instead of commodities for profit. So this is the basic definition of a democratic socialist project. The difference is that eco-socialism insists on the importance of the natural, the ecological limits of the human development. And doing this, eco-socialism breaks with what we could call the productivist dimension, not only of capitalism, but also of the majority of the socialist movement in the 20th century and even today. As I said in the conference, if you read the Communist Manifesto written by Marx and Engels, you'll find the sentence telling us that the working class will take the power, will take the government and use it to quantitatively develop the productive forces of society. Later in history, Engels personally wrote that capitalism would liberate the development of the productive forces in such a way that this development could be infinite. And later in his history, Marx changed his view on this problem. He adopted what we could describe as another paradigm of the human emancipation, which is not a productivist paradigm, but a paradigm of the rational management of the metabolism, the exchange of matter between the humankind and the rest of nature. This is what he explained in Capital, and especially in the third book of Capital. But these works by Marx are not known as well as the Communist Manifesto or popular writings by Engels. And the result is that this alternative paradigm by Marx wasn't known actually in the revolutionary movement, in the socialist movement. And this explains why even anti-bureaucratic currents in the revolutionary movement, not only Stalinist currents, were actually productivist. For instance, Trotsky had no, not at all, not any consciousness of the environmental challenge, not at all. He wrote, the socialist man will displace the mountains, close in the seas and détourner, change the course of the rivers and so on. And so all the socialist movement of the great majority of the socialist movement was actually productivist, and we eco-socialists wants to rebuild a socialist alternative based on the lost paradigm, the second paradigm by Marx, this paradigm of rational management of the relationship between the humankind and the rest of nature. And this paradigm today is especially important because the ecological crisis is so serious, and the alternative is so urgent that it doesn't suffice to stop the accumulation of capital. Actually, the situation is so serious that we have to reduce the final consumption of energy, and thus the transformation and the transportation of matter if we want to save the climate and the biodiversity.
Okay. And through your answer and through your work, it is obviously clear that you do not think that capitalism can do that green capitalism is not possible. That's also like a title of your book, right?
No, it's an impossibility. Indeed, you can, well, there's a debate because you can green capitalism in a certain way, and that's what the European Commission tries to do. They support green sectors of the capital, but capital as a whole, the capitalist system cannot be made green for one simple, obvious reason, which is that capitalism without growth is a contradiction in terms, like the great bourgeois economist, not the Marxist economist, the bourgeois economist Schumpeter said that capitalism without growth is contradiction in terms. Capitalism is productivist by nature, by its very nature. It's part of its DNA to always produce more, which entails using always more resources, natural resources, mineral resources, organic resources, energy resources, and producing always more waste and destruction of the environment. So green capitalism is an oxymoron by definition. And it appears very clearly today because we have today scientific research on what is called the global change. Scientists who have identified 9 parameters of the sustainability of the humankind on the earth, going from the carbon cycle to the cycle of water, cycle of nitrogen, acidification of ocean, ozone layer, and so on and so on. And their conclusion for each of these 9 parameters, they determined, or they tried to determine a boundary that humankind should not cross, because further its situation would not be sustainable. And 20 years or 25 years ago, they assessed that the boundaries were crossed for 4 of these 9 parameters, and last year they assessed that the boundaries were crossed for 6 or 7 of these parameters, and for some parameters they don't even have an estimation of where the boundary could be. So this gives really a precise image of the seriousness and the urgency of the situation. And what is totally paradoxical is that the level of scientific knowledge which is at disposal of the different governments is without precedent. Never in the history a society or ruling class has been aware at the disposal of such a level of scientific knowledge on the consequences of its action. And they know all this, if they do nothing
So
or
it's
nearly nothing.
not a question of knowledge. It's not a question of raising awareness. Everyone already knows everything.
Yeah,
Basically.
it's not a question of knowledge, it's a question of social relationships and of mode of production. And the capitalist mode of production is based on only one indicator, which is value, abstract value, the money, the profit. And this indicator is not, cannot even integrate the parameters of the sustainability of the humankind on Earth. It's out of
an external.
Yes, it's total external to their mode of thinking and to the very genuine mode of functioning of this society. So you can have bosses perfectly aware of the seriousness of the ecological crisis, but when they are in their executive board and they have to take decisions, they take decisions on basis of the profit, not on basis of their awareness of the seriousness of the ecological crisis. So it's a kind of schizophrenic situation, and it makes the society sick, in my view. But that's another debate.
Yeah. And it often happens that when capitalism is in crisis, there is a resurgence or a surge of fascism in a way. And you also mentioned the possible threat of eco-fascism as a response of unsuccessful neoliberal eco-modernization by European institutions or international institutions. Could you talk more about this threat?
Yes, I think it's a real threat, and it's growing very quickly in the present situation. You can notice it with recent electoral victories of Wilders in the Netherlands, the growth of the AFD in Germany, the victory of Milei in Argentina, the possible victory of Marine Le Pen in France, the Brexit, Trump could come back to power at the presidency in the US. And I think what's happening is that there's a double failure of the neoliberal policies. A social failure, of course, it's obvious, because inequalities are increasing everywhere. Poverty is developing even in the so-called developed countries. And the second failure is the failure of the environmental policy. And this second failure is especially threatening, inquiétant, worrying, because it makes possible for the far right to come back on an offensive position of negation of the risk of climate catastrophe. Because you can say, okay, you see, what they try to do is totally inefficient, and we're still there, so there's no catastrophe. So the climate negationism, or what the media wrongly called the climate skepticism. Actually, it's not a skepticism. It's a negationism, or a denying policy. They have the possibility to come back with this team in their propaganda. It's explicit in the victory of Milei. He was openly climate negationist. The same is true for the Wilders in the Netherlands. The same is true for the AfD in Germany. Le Pen is a bit more careful. Giorgia Meloni also is more careful, but it's a tactic carefulness in my view. If the double crisis deepens, they will more explicitly come back with a climate negationist point of view. And the danger is that they could couple this climate negationism with a populist approach, pretending being the best defenders of the working class, of their revenue, their job,
living standard,
their living standard, and so on. The car, the car. That's important. This is a fetish in this discourse. The possibility to take a plane, a flight, to go on holidays, and so on. And this is a real danger in my view. And that's what I that's what could become a real eco-fascism. Of course, when these people come to power on basis of this propaganda, populist demagogic propaganda, they won't solve the social crisis in favor of the working class, and they won't solve the environmental crisis neither. They will deepen the neoliberal aggressive policies against the popular classes. But it's a danger, and this danger underlies the urgency and the importance of an eco-socialist policy, not only as an alternative of society, but as a concrete strategy in the struggle, trying to unite, to promote demands linking the social and the environmental dimensions.
Yes, in a way, what is needed is like an attempt as a strategy, as like a movement for a socialist eco-transformation from below, in a way, né? And as in all socialist, let's say, political movements, the working class is one of the main subjects of this transformation. But as you already warned in the lecture, in the discussion previously, that we cannot see working class in abstract or fetishize it as like the working class.
Yeah.
How should we see it, and what consequences does this view of the working class have for our, let's say, political strategy, and what is our role in this?
But what I will say may seem to be a bit exaggerated or too polemic, but nevertheless I will express it this way. When you define the working class as the subject, the historical subject of the socialist transformation of society, what does it mean to use this word subject? In my view, the constitution of a subject, of a social subject, can be compared to the constitution of the individual as a subject. The individual is not a subject abstractly. It becomes a subject through his experience, his social experience, the contact with other peoples, the obstacles he meets, and so on and so on. And I think it's the same for the working class. It only becomes a subject of the socialist transformation through its struggle. And it's only through its struggle that it can transcend and bypass its own limitations, its illusions, its perverse ideas contaminated by imperialist ideologies, machist ideologies, and so on. And that's why I mentioned this quotation by Lenin, which I find very funny. He says some people imagine the revolution as the situation of two armies facing one another on the battlefield and organizing their battle. And it's not so, the revolution, because the camp of the working class, the army of the working class, is full of contradictions and machist oppression, imperialist ideas, racist ideas, and all these ideas are contradictory to a socialist project, and they have to be transcended by the experience of the struggle. From where, so the real, as your comrade Bojdan very well synthesized it. Pardon?
Synthesized it.
It's a process. The constitution of the historical subject of the socialist transformation. It's a subject of a process of struggle and of growing consciousness through the experience of struggles. There's no so what's the conclusion of that? The second part of your question for the strategy we should try to build up today. It means that instead of invoking the abstract working class subject of the transformation, we should try to identify within the working class the weakest points, where the sectors where the influence of the productivist, capitalist, imperialist hegemony is the weakest. The weak links of this capitalist hegemony, to speak like Gramsci, and try to improve the consciousness in these precise sectors. And in my view, the main sector for within this framework, if we try to elaborate what revolutionists called a strategical hypothesis, the privileged sector are the sectors linked or taking part in what Marxists call social reproduction, which is something else, not the same as the production. No? The social reproduction, healthcare, education sector,
kindergartens, taking care of the elderly,
collect of the waste in the cities, grand fires, and so on. These people, firstly, their job cannot be delocalized, not easily delocalized by capital, and secondly, their job includes a preoccupation, an attention for take care of the other, take care of the society, take care of nature. And this is, in my view, I may be wrong, but I think this is a better point of view, a better starting point for developing this eco-socialist consciousness. And if we develop it in this sector, it will give us a levy to try to evolve the consciousness in the most difficult sectors of the working class, namely the sectors linked to the fossil fuel consumption, the petrochemical industry, the
coal mining,
the car industry, and so on and so on. So it's a question of developing a strategy and trying to have concrete objectives within this framework to find allies, because it's obvious that the environmental movement cannot get a victory without the working class, without the popular classes participating in the fight.
And what about our global strategy? You also mentioned extractivism, especially European Green New Deal is based on extractivism of resources for renewables or for electrification of the vehicles in the center, imperial center.
Yeah, there are two aspects, I think, in this new green imperialism. The one aspect is the extractivist dimension, the rare earth that they need to produce the so-called new technologies, and they prefer exploiting this rare earth in the global south for different reasons than to exploit them in the imperialist or the more developed countries. They tried in Serbia a few years ago or 2 years ago, and it failed because there was a huge opposition of the population against this mine. So that's the first aspect, the extractivist aspect, the extractivist dimension, which is purely imperialist, of course. And the second aspect is using the countries of the so-called global south as to discard the waste of the capitalist production in the imperialist countries, and discard the waste including the land grabbing to use the forest in Africa, for instance, as carbon sinks. Recently, the Emirates, there's a national company in the Emirates managed by one of the members of the ruling family, which object is to acquire, to buy, to grab the land in the African countries, and they grab land in 4 countries if I correctly remember, at really imperialist conditions. So they will have the free possibility to sell carbon credits, the system, which are very dubious actually, but to sell these carbon credits for 20 or 30 years, I don't remember exactly, without paying nearly anything to the difference, among others to Liberia. The conditions of the contract with Liberia are particularly scandalous, abusive. So these are the two aspects of this green imperialism. And then too is a problem of strategy towards the working class and the different sectors of the working class, because sectors of the workers working in the petrochemical industry, for instance, they experience the green capitalist policy as a threat for their job, their revenue, their living standard, and so on. Above all, for their job, of course, and because the relations of forces with the bosses are difficult and bad for the unions, they tend to see these green imperialist solutions as positive for them. So, for instance, the exploitation, the production of hydrogen in Arabia and the importation in West Europe to feed the petrochemical industry is supported by the unions as a green solution. So they support imperialist policies of green capitalism.
Okay, thank you for the extremely interesting, albeit a bit short interview. And I would just ask you if you have some concluding remarks, something for the end to inspire us maybe, or to scare us into action.
Well, I do what I did in the debate this evening. I'd like to quote Bertolt Brecht: "Those who fight are not sure to win, but those who don't fight are sure to lose." And of course, the situation today is extremely difficult for the left, for the radical left, for eco-socialism. Of course, that's obvious. The far right is growing everywhere, but we have to fight. We have to organize social movements, build up social movements, coordinate social movements, and never forget that the growth of the far right is also an expression of the growing instability of the capitalist domination itself, so that the situation might very quickly reverse and to the opposite, to the left. Okay, depends on us.
Okay, up to us. So let's get to work now.
Yeah, that's it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.